Pokemon Ranger, I hardly know her. Pokemon Ranger has always been the other big spin-off series since everyone loves Mystery Dungeon and the Ranger series was always kinda just there. The biggest reason to get to the first Ranger game was just to get that silly Manaphy egg, and that's about it. And it wouldn't surprise me if some people got that game just for that egg. Ranger was good enough to have 3 games in this series, which is better than most spin-off Pokemon series, but the gameplay is heavily dependent on being on the Nintendo DS since the gameplay is just, well, this. We never saw a Pokemon Ranger game released for the 3DS, but they did re-release some of the older Ranger games for the Wii U Virtual Console of all things, which if that was your first introduction to Pokemon Ranger, I'm so sorry. Today though, we'll be looking at Pokemon Ranger Guardian Signs as well as the strategy guide to follow it as closely as possible to try to beat the game how Nintendo intended. If you're new here, that's one of the things we like to do on this channel, so consider leaving a like and subscribe if you want to see more videos like this, or you know what, you could just not do that either, I guess. Guardian Signs is the third and final game in the Ranger series, so it is weird to start out with the last game for the Nintendo series here, but it's the only one I have a guide for right now, and I've also never played this game before, so it should be fun. I bought this copy used at GameStop back in like 2015 where they were practically giving away their DS games and never played it since, and I always thought I just wasted my $16.99 or however much I spent back then on this game because I never played it, but 8 years later I finally have a use for this game by making a silly YouTube video out of it, so thanks past me from 2015. Taking a closer look at the guide, we have a map of the Oblivia region, a page on how to use this book, which is perfect for me because I don't know how to read, then the world of Pokemon Ranger where we see a Pichu holding a ukulele. I somehow never knew this image existed and tweeted it out. Follow me on Twitter, by the way, link in the description. And apparently a lot of other people also had no idea about this Pichu that's holding a ukulele because nobody plays Pokemon Ranger games. The guide then introduces us to some key characters we'll meet in the gameplay soon enough, including the Pokemon Pinchers, who are an evil organization performing secret operations. They are led by Red Eyes, Blue Eyes, and Purple Eyes. Those sound a bit familiar to me. The next page shows us how to catch Pokemon, which like I said earlier, we can do by just doing this, but more specifically, we draw circles around Pokemon on our touchscreen and dodge their attacks to capture them, and then use their Poké-Assist in battle or out of battle to do things like cut trees in our way, or charge up our Styler, which some Electric-type Pokemon can do, which acts like our life bar and looks like a Beyblade. Yeah, this game is pretty weird. If we use a Poké-Assist in the overworld, the Pokemon will then disappear after use, and some Poké-Assists can also be used to help catch other Pokemon. This takes type effectiveness into account too, so something like a Gliscor will be best against a Houndoom, and as long as they don't get hit in the battle, they stay in our party of 7 Pokemon. Kind of weird how we can have a party of 7 Pokemon, and we just use them once and then they're gone forever, but we can also call upon some special Pokemon with Ranger signs that can help us do other tasks that we'll go over more later on. That pretty much covers most of the basics, then the next page starts the walkthrough, so let's load up Pokemon Ranger, get ready to draw a ton of circles and ruin my touchscreen, and beat Pokemon Ranger Guardian Signs how Nintendo intended. Starting off, we see we're flying to the Oblivia region on a special assignment from the Pokemon Ranger Union, and we see these people flying on a UFO-like machine in pursuit of a Latios. They attack us with a Pidgey, which is just a normal catching tutorial for the game. Then they kidnap our ranger partner Summer and send us falling into the ocean below. Our capture styler breaks as we fall and gets taken away from a Mantike, which is rather rude, so we have to chase after it by turning our DS vertically. While this is happening, the game tells us about these enemies on mysterious machines who attack Pichu and use a tool called the Control Gauntlet to take over Pokemon. It doesn't seem that much different than our capture styler, but apparently each circle we make around a Pokemon with the styler increases their friendship towards us or something, so it's a bit less unethical, or a bit more ethical, I guess you could say, than just forcing them to obey us. Although we kind of do force them to obey us because as soon as we use them once, they just run away, but that's besides the point. We have a flashback with our meeting with Professor Hastings about our mission, then ends up washed up on a beach. We walk around for a bit and see a Pichu with a ukulele, nothing out of the ordinary there, and Booker, who is a local shipmaker from Rainbow Island. Here the game shows us how Poké-Assist works by using cut on this log with a Bulbasaur, and we get Booker's ship back into the water so we can set sail for Coconut Village. Here we start our first mission to chase those Pinchers, and a local boy named Ralph tells us how he saw an older man named Arlie chase them into the Takewood Forest, so we need to help him. We learn more about Poké-Assist and target clearing, and at one point the guide says to catch a Weezing to clear this rock, but it really just meant a coughing as we don't see any Weezings around here, and the picture just shows a coughing. We eventually find Arlie, who tells us that the Pinchers were inspecting this monument, which has some carvings on it. We continue to chase down the pinchers, find Raikou, then for our very first boss battle we have to fight a Celebi. It wasn't too hard, then the Celebi takes us back into time to meet Ravio, who tells us about the region's old temples before going back to the present, meeting a man named Rand, who is the only Pokemon Ranger that lives in the region, as well as his wife Leanne and his daughter Nema, who helps us fix our stylus. That Pichu with a ukulele then returns and joins our team as a permanent member, which is a very good Pokemon to have, as it has a very good Poke Assist that we will abuse a lot throughout the rest of this game. Now for Mission 2, we have to salvage the sunken UFO. I also wanted to note how the guide chose a recommended route for each mission that we need to follow, but the title of each step in the recommended route is just the order of each step it has in the detailed version of the guide, so there really isn't much of a point to this. For Mission 2, we go to the water, catch this Lapras, then go diving for the sunken UFO in the Coral Sea. Pichu can't come underwater with us, so we need to use this Corsola we find underwater to break this rock, then chase down this Kingdra to the dark depths of the sea, and find the crashed UFO so we can head back to Rand's house, which was also set on fire. Yeah, this game doesn't mess around. We need to put the fire out with a Weasel and a Shello so we can find nearby, as some places require us to use 2 Pokemon at the same time for a Poke Assist to clear one area, and after we put the fire out, that clears out Mission 2. For Mission 3, we need to liberate the Wireless Tower. Before that, Nema upgrades our Styler, something that she does every now and then we make our way through some pinchers into the Wireless Tower. Here we learn about agitated Pokemon, which are angry Pokemon that have this additional red meter we have to deplete to catch them as well. They're a bit harder to capture because of this, but Poke Assists help a lot for them in battle. This agitated Gligar in particular helps us get rid of this barricade. We traverse the rest of the tower, use 2 Hitmonchans to break this block, then prepare for a boss fight against a Raikou. It's just Gligar's Poke Assist, which does help tame the Raikou. After defeating it, we learn Raikou's sign, which we can then draw on our Styler to summon Raikou whenever we want, and ride around a Raikou to go a little bit faster, and also use it to jump over gaps like this river with. Before summoning Raikou, we see Burkhardt again, who works at the tower with 2 pinchers who try to distract him by saying, "Hey look, a flying pizza," to which Burkhardt responds with, "Does it have onions?" The dialogue in this game is pretty funny at some points, and I wonder if that's the case in the original Japanese release, or if when they localized these games they just added these jokes, because they tend to do that with a lot of games sometimes. This Raikou is very convenient though to go across the Booker Bridge that is broken, and meet Nick, who upgrades Pikachu's ukulele. The bridge was broken by pinchers setting bombs on it, and I just wanted to point out how they have now set somebody's house on fire, knocked us out of the sky with UFO guns, and bombed a local bridge, which is a bit excessive. In Mission 4, we have to investigate the old mansion. We have to meet Murph on Tilt Village, but without the guide I wouldn't have known that, since he's just this unassuming guy just standing in the town, and probably would have wandered around confused if I played this game as a kid. We then see a magic show from a magician named Hocus, and go through the Noir Forest where we have to stay out of these Dusclops' sight or else they warp us back to the start of the forest. The guide says how, if you like, you can capture them from behind, which sounds a lot like your mom. Once we get through, we enter the mansion, and we have to use a few different Poke Assists to help us move obstacles out of the way, with Vulpix being a very important one for the next boss. Before the boss though, we meet Blue Eyes, no, not that one, this Blue Eyes, and fight her Meganium with help from Vulpix. We apprehend Blue Eyes, have another encounter with Celebi, who tells us a bit more about Oblivia's ancient history, something I'm slowly realizing is connecting to the Pincher's goals. And then we meet Red Eyes, no, not that one, this Red Eyes, who offers to return Summer, the ranger that got kidnapped at the very start of the game with us, in exchange for Blue Eyes, but we decline. This takes us to Mission 5, titled Rescue Summer/Ben, with Ben being the name for the boy ranger if you pick the girl character. First, we get attacked by some pinchers on the Matango Road, and enter the Daybreak Ruins, where the mission really starts. The guide tells us to get Natu or Curlier to clear this psychic wall. Then we need to use Poke Assist from a few different psychic Pokemon to illuminate these orbs and reflect the light in a specific way that opens up the boss fight against Entei. Blue Eyes provokes Entei, causing it to attack us, but we can use Bibarel's Poke Assist to help out in the fight. Entei's fire attacks have a huge range, making it a pretty annoying Pokemon to battle against, but after defeating it, we can record Entei's sign, which we can use to call upon Entei and break through boulders while riding it along our way. We rescue Summer as Red Eyes disappears in a field of explosions from electrodes, and I really don't appreciate all of the explosions the pinchers are causing in front of us. Murph then tells us he fixed the bridge, and once Nema repairs Summer's Styler, we learn the location of the pincher's headquarters since the Styler that she had picked it up. Nema also teaches us how to power charge with our Styler, which is just when you hold down the Styler when catching a Pokemon for a few seconds. It makes the Styler a bit stronger, give us more points for each loop we make around a Pokemon, which is pretty nice. Now for Mission 6, we have to find the pinchers on the dangerous cliff. We use Entei to smash some rocks in our way and make it into one of the pincher's submarines. The guide tells us to catch a lot of Pokemon here like Gligar for later and 2 Luxios. The 2 Luxios clear out this huge gate, then Gligar or Sandslash can clear out the second one. We have to dodge more Dusclops in the next area, and run into more agitated Pokemon before fighting the pinchers again, and having a boss fight against Blue Eyes' Feraligatr. The guide suggests Luxio's Poke Assist for Feraligatr, as well as Makuhita just because it hits really hard and has a good range. After the fight, Blue Eyes gets a call to put Plan Z into effect, whatever that is. Then right after that we learn exactly what Plan Z is, as it was to crash the submarine and leave us stranded behind. We have 10 minutes to escape the submarine, and the game even has a timer on the top corner to show us how much time we have left. On our escape, we catch some Furts to help us along the way, and skillfully dodge some Steam Jets, although they did hit me a few times. But before leaving, we see that Blue Eyes got stuck in the crash behind this box and needs our help to escape. We help her, then Murph comes along with his ship called the Union to rescue us and take us back to the land, clearing out Mission 6, after we apprehend Blue Eyes for a second time. Mission 7 is titled Protect Moltres, since the pinchers are trying to pinch Moltres to help with their evil plans. Before we head over there, Murph tells us how the Union has a hole in it now, so we have to go back to Booker to repair the ship. Pichu's ukulele gets upgraded as well. Then Ralph tells us about a letter that he got from a pretty lady with blue eyes. I wonder if the pretty lady with blue eyes could be Blue Eyes. The letter says that Red Eyes is headed for Faldera Volcano, so after the Union gets repaired, we ride it over to the volcano. The first thing that happens here is we encounter the pinchers, then need to use a lot of Poke Assist to stop the lava from flowing, move these boulders into the lava so we can cross, and enlist the help of 3 Shelgons to help us move this big rock plate. The guide then says to capture Gastrodon for its Poke Assist, as well as the ability to put out this burning rock so a Primeape or Pupitar can then break it. We then see the pinchers trying to awaken Moltres but get attacked by the ZZ brothers in the sky, which is really just a trap leading us to Red Eyes and his boss Charizard. We can't use Poke Assist since we're in the sky, so we have to rely on being careful against Charizard and wait for it to stop gliding around the screen to get a few loops in. It was a bit of a tricky battle, but we abuse charging and defeat it. Moltres still gets awakened, however, as we clear the mission. Mission 8 is called Appease Suicune's Wrath, although we're really just trying to find Articuno, and there's a hint to Articuno's whereabouts on Rand's house on his rug, of all things. We then have to confront the pinchers and break the giant cage to release these Staraptors so we can capture them and then use them to fly around the region a bit easier. We can now fly on over to the Aqua Resort and have a quick run-in with these easy flyers along the way. In the Aqua Resort, we meet Superna, who loves bird Pokemon. Then Crass tells us to go to Weaver's shop. The Weaver can apparently decipher the clue that is on the Articuno rug, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, but this is a kid's video game released back in 2010, so not much really needs to make sense. We eventually have to pursue the pinchers underwater, where we can't take any of our old Pokemon, have to only use water Pokemon we find that can swim, like these Huntails to clear these broken pillars, and Gorbis to clear the wire anchors. We have another underwater chase with the pinchers that leads us to Suicune, and for the fight, the guy just we use Lombre or Ludicolo, so I caught 3 Lombres just for this fight. They make this fight go by in 2 shakes of a lamb's tail, so we can record Suicune's sign after defeating it and call upon it whenever we need to so we can walk on water. This allows us to reach Weber the Weaver and have him decipher the ancient writing on the Articuno rug, which tells us that Articuno is atop Mount Sorbet on the Sophian Island. As we exit the Weaver's house, we see Arlie, Casa, and Hocus, who are part of Society, that's spelled like society with the word tea at the end, like the drink tea, which is a bit strange. We learn that they're all longtime friends along with Dr. Edward, which isn't sketchy at all. Also, who sets up a tea party in the middle of a town in front of a fountain like this? The main character is wearing a scarf, so it's gotta be kinda cold for an outdoor tea party. For Mission 9, we have to chase after Red Eyes and search for Articuno. We have to dodge this avalanche by hiding behind these pillars, dodge Snover's ice balls, have a few run-ins with some pinchers, and catch some Monfernos which are useful against wild Pokemon around here, and useful to clear out even more targets along our way. When we reach the top, Red Eyes has already awakened Articuno, and sends out his Typhlosion to fight us. The guide suggests Empoleon or Prinplup for it, and luckily we have an Empoleon on our team. But we also have Vaporeon, don't make the jokes, which helps out just as well because it's also a water-type Pokemon, to help us defeat Typhlosion. After returning to Rand's house, he invites us to Coconuts Village, where we take the hero's trial in preparation for a festival. We pass the trial, and it's just a simple puzzle that we have the answer for in this guide, and get the Rainbow Grail as a reward, which we need to use in the festival ceremony. Pichu's ukulele then gets upgraded again, as we are told to return to Rand's house immediately. This starts Mission 10, where Rand is attacked, and Nemma and Leon are kidnapped by the Pokemon pinchers. Rand can't remember if it was Red Eyes or Blue Eyes who did this though, but we were able to pick up Nemma's signal from her styler, which tells us to go to Silver Falls. Suicune helps us walk across water to get there, as we enter this ancient tomb that we need Ghost and Psychic type Pokemon to help us get through. There's a lot of puzzles in this mission, which made this mission one of my favorites in the game, as it was quite different from all the missions that came before it. It turns out that it also wasn't Red Eyes or Blue Eyes who kidnapped our friends, but it was actually Purple Eyes. He's the leader of the Pinchers who has just been using Red Eyes and Blue Eyes this whole time. He fights us with his Garchomp as the guide suggests Gabite's Poke Assist for this, although I didn't manage to catch one just yet. Pichu's Ukulele power is really strong and it now paralyzes Pokemon for a few seconds after we use it, resulting in a lot of easy loops towards the end of the assist. With this mission cleared and our friends rescued, Leanne tells us where Zapdos is and we have to get there before the Pinchers do. I don't know if it's fully explained or if I fully explained it in this video yet, but the Pinchers need the 3 legendary birds to carry out their evil plan, although we don't fully know what their evil plan is just yet, but we know it has something to do with the ancient history of the Oblivia region. We have to fly on Staraptor over to Lyunda Island, where we encounter more Pinchers who are chasing after a Latios and we need to dodge the thunderstorms while flying, but Staraptor is unable to go through all the thunderstorms, so we have to take a detour and land on Tikaloo Island instead. Here we have to solve the mystery of Tikaloo Island, and we start off by finding this monument. Leanne then calls us to tell us that these monuments are related to Latios, so we have to travel across the Oblivia region and find all the monuments. This results in a lot of Pincher fights, another underwater section, then finally a fight with Latios in the sky, so we can't use any of our Poke Assists. Latios even has a barrier around it, so the guide suggests that we charge our Styler and make even bigger loops to go around it to dodge the barrier, as we take damage if we hit the barrier. This was one of the more difficult fights we did in the entire battle, and we took some damage along the way, but after capturing Latios, we learned its sign and can call upon Latios to fly on it instead of flying on Staraptor. Latios is strong enough to fly through the storm too, and take us over to Lyunda Island. For this mission, we have to stop Purple Eyes. We start off by catching a Drapion, fighting some Pinchers, dodging some lightning that keeps striking this lake, which is incredibly dangerous, then fight some Steelheads as well as traverse through a ton of agitated Pokemon to find another Steelhead who throws 8 Electros at us that all explode right in front of us. Kind of rude if you ask me, but throughout this whole ordeal, Purple Eyes is able to awaken Zapdos and then fights us with his Metagross. This Metagross was probably the hardest fight we had so far in the game, since on the first attempt I actually got knocked out by it because we didn't have any of the Poke Assists recommended, but on the second try I went back and got a couple of Gliscors as the guy suggested, and made this fight a lot more manageable. We defeat Purple Eyes and his Metagross, but he's still able to awaken Zapdos and is one step closer to his goal. We then find Casa as a new door opens because of the awakened birds. We then learn that the members of society, those weird people who had a tea party outside earlier, who have mostly just been random side characters this whole game, are actually evil and they've been running things the whole time. They need the birds to be awakened in order to break the barrier on the Sky Fortress so they can then use it to take over the world. I'm not really sure how nobody noticed this giant flying Sky Fortress before, but sure. For mission 13, we need to destroy the fortress's barrier so we can get in. Leanne gives us a hint that the Rainbow Grail we got earlier can be placed on an ancient dais to help us stop the barrier, so we can then get into the fortress. When we go to the dais, it turns out that the Grail was only just a replica and not the real one, and we need to find the real one in the Rasp Cavern. There are a few puzzles and obstacles throughout here, but then the guide notes to capture a Ledian or a Primeape to use in battle later on, then to fight this Absol, which we get the real Grail for after capturing it. The team then has a hard time locating the final dais to bring the Grail to, but it turns out that at the very start of the game, when we got shot out of the sky by the Pinchers and landed in the water, right where we landed in the water was where the other dais was, and our stylus happened to just track that when we fell, so we're able to locate it and go back there, but when we arrive, Ho-Oh appears and fights us. The guide suggests we use water types for Ho-Oh, but we weren't able to get any, so instead we just abused Pichu and charging to defeat Ho-Oh, and now we can call upon Ho-Oh with its sign whenever we need to. With the barriers around the fortress gone, we can head to the skies with Latios and dodge the Pinchers' attacks in the sky. Once we finally reach the fortress, there's a ton of Pokemon to battle, especially agitated Pokemon and a few bosses. The 4 society members are bosses here, kind of like the Elite 4 of this game in a way, and first up is Arlie and his Regigigas. It was a really annoying battle because he kept stomping around very quickly and kept breaking my loops, making it hard to just loop around, but we had fighting type Pokemon on our team like Hitmonlee and Hariyama to take care of it. Then for Hocus, we have a fight against a giant Crobat in the sky, so we can't use any Poke Assists, and had to make really big loops around it because of how big the Crobat was. And then after defeating it, we see there is an imposter among us as Casa uses Ditto to transform into us and Summer, and then in the actual fight against Ditto, it transforms into Suicune, Entei, and Raikou. This fight was a bit challenging, but with those 3 bosses out of the way, we can finally open up the door to Ed the Thinker's Room, who is the real evil leader of society and the real evil guy in this game. And of course, he just has a Mewtwo. They just don't really explain it, he just has Mewtwo. We have a Houndoom with us as the guide recommended, which made this boss fight a lot easier than it should have been. But then after defeating the first Mewtwo, we have to fight against a powered up version of Mewtwo, which is just a harder Mewtwo. We can still use PaPaSea to help out against this powered up Mewtwo, as it was a bit harder than the previous Mewtwo, and we keep hammering away at Mewtwo to defeat it, stop society from the evil plans of taking over the world, and then the credits roll, meaning we beat Pokemon Ranger Guardian Signs how Nintendo intended, at least according to this strategy guide. I never even played this game before, and I never even beat the first Ranger game when it came out when I got it as a kid, but overall this game was pretty good and surprised me a bit. I didn't expect to like it as much as I did, but I ended up putting 19 hours into this game just over a weekend. I definitely recommend trying out a Pokemon Ranger game if you haven't already, and I do plan on making intended videos for other games in the series and other games in general that you should look out for. As for the guide itself, it did a pretty good job of guiding us through the game, since I've never played it before, especially since there were some points where finding out which Pokemon I needed for a specific PaPaSea would have needed me to just do a lot of trial and error. It would have been annoying catching out a Pokemon, so having a guide tell me exactly what Pokemon I needed was really nice. It was a very straightforward guide with no real jokes or mistakes I could tell, aside from that one coughing and wheezing mistake in the first mission. But the back of the guide does have a full Pokédex, as well as outlines for every single side quest you could do, and a section on the post-game as well. Between all of this, you could easily sink over 30, probably even 40 hours into this game, which is a lot more content than I expected. I look forward to playing other Ranger games in the future, and if you also want to see future videos like this, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. With all that out of the way, thank you so much for watching, have a great rest of your day, I'll see you all next time, and bye bye.